I'm joined by Alan Ward, Chairman of the Residential Landlords Association here at the Landlords and Letting Show. And Alan, counting down to the 2015 general election, and housing is most definitely a top 3 issue, isn't it?
Very much on the agenda, and the next issue of the RLA magazine has got a feature from the policies of each of the political parties. So we've got the Conservatives, who are basically saying they want to encourage build to rent, which is a bit of a danger, I think, for private landlords, because this is really trying to push the corporate side, and we could end up with a sort of 2-tier market if we're not careful. Labour doesn't like it being called rent control, but rent indexation is their word. But whatever it is, this is yes, that's sorry, neither. And this is really taking away the control from the land. It's actually inflationary if you think about it, because it's all part of their longer-term tenancies. Landlords, they want to have 3-year tenancies. Within that, you can only put up the rent annually according to probably CPI, although they're not saying that. Whereas at the moment, landlords tend not to put the rents up. After 3 years, market rents are about 8% below. So then we've got the Lib Dems. They want to build a lot of houses, about 300,000, places like Ebbsfleet, fine, and UKIP. They don't really want to build any more houses. They want to think about it, but they're also in favour of a limited amount of licensing. But that is all.
Their housing minister, Andrew Shaw-Lambert, is actually a landlord.
A landlord, yes. Now, I'm not saying the RLA's got all the answers, but in this is our election manifesto, because we don't think the parties really understand how the private rented sector works. And we are looking at things like regulation that does work, about better enforcement, about improvements to taxation, so that landlords get rollover tax. And one little gem is really all this licensing. The councils tell us that it's about identifying the landlords, but it only gets at the good landlords, doesn't it? So we say, add on to the council tax form the tenure. And so if you are renting a property as a tenant, you put in the name of the landlord as well. Now, good
Alan,
landlords,
that's just too simple.
Well, yeah, but nobody's come up with it before.
I know.
You know.
And along with your political lobbying, Alan, you're also releasing a lot of information and press releases, and we've had one on Property Tribes today that landlords aren't happy that there's a lack of enforcement of the existing legislation.
Well, yes, because you frequently quote, I think, there are 100 laws that are there to protect tenants and landlords, good landlords, and not being enforced. There was a report from the Local Government Association last week that said 54% of councils feel they are unable to enforce. And that's across the board, not just on housing matters, on food safety and everything else. They haven't got the capacity to fulfil their statutory obligations. That's appalling.
Well,
so there's no point having more laws from whichever party comes into power after May, if we can't do something about the current ones. And that's, again, one of the reasons in our manifesto here that we say there should be intelligence-led enforcement, not blanket licensing, which doesn't achieve anything for anybody, but you trust the good landlords to self-regulate and make that robust by having a redress scheme, so that if there are disputes between landlords and tenants, then that can be dealt with away from the courts. And again, free up the backlog of cases that are in the courts, since the government cut back on the number of courts dealing with landlords.
Well, again, a really good idea, very simple, shouldn't be too difficult to implement. So let's hope the politicians are listening. But right now, I think they just want to win votes, don't they?
Yes, and it will be very interesting to see what happens on May the 8th. The day after, I mean.
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Where can we get a copy of your manifesto? There it is.
It's available online, rla.org.uk/manifesto. If you want a printed copy, ring the RLA.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your input as always, Alan. Thank you.